Hi, this is Emile Menasché for Acoustic Guitar Magazine, and what I have here is a Gruhn Versitar. It was designed by George Gruhn, who's really well known as a vintage guitar guru, but he decided in his own design, rather than compete with the classics and make new versions of those, he would innovate rather than imitate. That's what he said when we interviewed him, and looking at some of the features on this guitar, he meant what he said. So probably the big standout here is that the neck is attached with bolts that go into metal inserts, and that allows the neck to be removed, reset, adjusted for angle without any deterioration of the wood. This guitar has 22 frets, which is very unusual for an acoustic guitar. Without the heel, there's really excellent access to the upper frets. It's a 25.5-inch scale fretboard. All of the appointments are really excellent, minimalist, which is not very easy for me to say. And the finish is very light. The guitar really feels like you're holding a piece of wood. And it feels like it's ready for work as opposed for show. So we're going to take it through its paces. When I spoke to Gruhn, he said, this guitar really sounds better if you put the mic a little bit further away from it. So what I have is stereo mics on the camera, but I also have a short condenser mic, and we're going direct as well. It has an LR Baggs preamp and a pickup system, and one of the things that I think is great is you can barely see the controls, but yet they're very easily accessed. They're accessed from a teardrop sound hole, and that's one of the innovations that Gruhn talked about. Was by moving the sound hole, he was able to do some bracing that would give the guitar a much more solid connection here between the bridge and the nut. The neck also has a full-length truss rod, which is unusual for an acoustic guitar, and the fact that there's no neck joint also does impact the way this guitar vibrates. It has a very distinctive voice in terms of the way the notes balance, the sustain, and just the articulation dynamically. So I'm going to try to bring all of those elements out in this test, playing dynamically, playing with a bunch of different, I have 3 picks here. I'm going to use at least 2 of them, and of course my hands. So we'll start with some basic strums, and I'm going to use a medium heavy pick. I'm going to do the same kind of thing with a much lighter pick. And when I say the same kind of thing, it's because the tone of this guitar kind of takes you in different directions playing, at least for me. So what I found is with a lighter pick, I thought a little bit differently. So probably the same kind of chords I was playing a minute ago. Now, played with fingers, I feel like that's really what brings out the notes of this thing. We're listening for overtones here. And sustain. My dog is snoring. He did the same thing in the earlier take that we did, that we are redoing for this take. He sat there, or he laid there and snored, and then when we were done, he stopped. I don't know what that says about my guitar playing, but it says something. So one of the things that really stood out to me, and continues to about this guitar, we were talking a little bit about how the structure of it gives the notes a very distinctive voice. And I think in the lower stretches of the instrument and the low mids, it's the articulation without boominess that works really well. So if you have like a third on the low E string, so like a D with the third down here, F sharp, or even this voicing with the third on the D, it doesn't sound detached, but it also doesn't sound smeary. So the upper harmonies ring really well with that lower note. So here's an example. Okay, so that D, I'm hoping the mics are picking this up, so the D here is really ringing. But now I'm going to go up to a G, that same kind of voicing. And I'm going to play an open D in this G too. And there's just a lot you can play with in there. For me, as a player, the feedback you're getting from the instrument, from the playing position, is very inspiring. So if you can play around, sort of inside these chord voicings, let my left hand do all the work here. I'm on the 15th fret, and I've got the leverage that I would have playing a Stratocaster, because there's no heel here. Now, I'm playing with a fairly, I would say, moderately light attack. Let's hit this thing a little bit now, okay? So the neck is what I would call this neck fairly fast for an acoustic. It's definitely not as blocky as you would find on a more traditional guitar. One of the things that Gruhn said to me when we spoke was that this guitar was really nice tuned down, and I want to tune it down and play in some double drop D, and then I'm going to play with the electronics a little bit and mute the mic, but we'll get to that in a second. overtones are really, really ringing. You know, there's a term in sports where they say play to the whistle, where you don't stop a play until the ref blows the whistle. And, you know, if you're playing soccer and you think you're offside, shoot anyway. Well, there's something of that quality to this guitar, because the overtones linger. So you don't want to give up on a note too soon, or be lazy about the decay, or think about the next note. It's like, if you are present when you're playing this instrument, I think it'll reward you for that. You know, it's interesting because some guitars are forgiving when you make a mistake or you hit a clam. And this guitar, it's pretty easy to get a good sounding note, but I just missed that thumb earlier. And so it rang, but what's interesting is, like, you know it can ring better because it can be like, you know. So is that forgiving? Or is that demanding? Because it's saying to you, well, if you hit that note right, it's really going to sound good. But, you know, if you don't, it's going to sound disappointing. And some guitars would just sound the same no matter what, or just not give you the note at all, so it sounds terrible if you make a mistake. So it's an interesting question. I definitely feel that some instruments make you have to focus harder to get everything they have to give you. These open gear tuners are very lightweight. They really tune easily. So this neck, I was saying at the end of the last segment that this neck was what I would call fast. It's very, it's a little bit on the thin side. It's not deep. I like all kinds of necks. I like fat necks. I like thin necks sometimes. This is one of the sometimes, because it just has a nice feel to the back of it. And it definitely gives you that ability to bend. Okay, I am going to play again, but when you hear it, I'm going to have muted the mic. So I'm going to play around with the LR Baggs preamp, and we'll have a little bit of sample of that, and then we're done. Thank you. I'm going to pop back in and say I'm adjusting the tone control here. There's a center detent. So here it is at center. Here it is up toward the treble. And here it is back toward the bass. Now those are extremes. I kind of liked it in the middle. And this is Emile Menasché for Acoustic Guitar Magazine. Thank you very much for listening.